In methodologically, whenever you have a situation where there seems to be repetition, the Meforshim will always have a field day. We're in Parshat Vayeishev, and we have the famous phrase, Vayira Yaacov me'od, Vayetzer lo. Yaakov was extremely afraid, extremely scared. That's one phrase, and the fact that it has a term me'od already expands the phrase. Then there's a second phrase, Vayetzer lo, and it distressed him greatly. So what's the repetition from Vayira to Vayetzer? That's our topic. And the Meforshim, many of them deal with this. Of course, everyone is familiar with Rashi. Sometimes we don't understand the Rashi well. What does Rashi say? Yaakov was afraid that he would be killed. Esav is coming to kill him. He's coming with an armed band of it's an army of 400 armed men. What's Vayetzer lo? He was distressed, he was bothered that maybe he would kill one of them. So we understand that Yaakov was afraid he would be killed. What does that mean, he was afraid he would kill one of them? Everyone questions Rashi. Haba l'hargecha, hashkem, I'm sorry. Haba l'hargecha, someone comes to kill you, hashkem l'hargo. This is not we're not the religion of turn the other cheek and just you should be slaughtered. That's not our religion. Our religion is self-defense. You stand up. If someone is coming to kill you, that's an evil. And not only do we stop evil when it happens to others, we stop evil when it's being perpetrated against ourselves. So why would he be distressed if he would kill someone? So the Sifsei Chachamim gives a couple of possibilities as to what Rashi was really saying. One is, you're absolutely right. If Esav comes to kill Yaakov and he has to respond in self-defense, of course you kill him if it's for self-defense. But what will the ramifications be to father, to Yitzchak? The last 20-some years, Yaakov hasn't been there. Esav has been the one who's been there for his father, with his father and mother. Esav was a very good son to his parents. Yes, many of his ways, the women that he married, some of his actions were terrible, terribly distressing. It created great bitterness and disappointment to parents. But Esav tried his best. We know Esav was a role model in Kibbutz Avim. He would change his clothing. The way we would get dressed up for Shabbos or get dressed up for a wedding, Esav would get dressed up when he went to visit his parents. He sincerely was a well-meaning son in that sense. But what happens? If Esav is killed, can you imagine what that does to father? Can you imagine how that's going to hurt father, what that will do to father's old age? That's Vayetzer lo. Another possibility is this. It's an issue that we deal with in modern warfare. It's an issue that we've dealt with throughout the millennia, the whole issue of collateral damage. Sure, if someone is coming after you, they're coming to attack you, you respond, you defend yourself. Absolutely. But you know what happens in war? There are many people who are not coming to kill you, who are innocents, who are in the way. How many soldiers in the Israeli army, the American army, and all armies die what we call a friendly fire? How many people, civilians, are killed because they're near or in the range of battle? The trajectory was wrong on a missile, and instead of it attacking the enemy camp, it blows up a school or goes into a civilian neighborhood, etc., etc. Yaakov, Vayetzer lo, he was distressed that he would kill, not distressed that he would kill someone who deserved it, but collateral damage. That's approach number 2 as to what Vayetzer lo is, that extra term. What's a third approach? This I heard from Rabbi Shalom Rosner on outorah.org. We have the opportunity to hear the Parsha from Rabbi Shalom Rosner, and he quoted this from the Yam Simcha, Rabbi Simcha Fried, a Rav in Lakewood, who has great hesberim on the Chumash. And the Yam Simcha says something that is psychologically very profound. Yeah, Yaakov has a right to kill. In self-defense, as we've said 3 times already, he has every right to. But you know what happens? When you kill, you're not the same human being. You've become a killer. Think about what Pinchas went through, killing Zimri and Cosby. The whole concept of the covenant as brisi shalem, brisi shalom, the bris of peace, but the vav is written, it's written ketia, not a full vav like shalom, but shalem. Because there's something, it does something to you. That profound sensitivity to human life, that profound sensitivity, to the primacy we give to life, to take a human life and all that a human life is, all that a human life can be and will produce. And if you're a killer, but even if it's for a mitzvah, even if it's for the right purposes, you become sensitive. You become desensitized. The Yam Simcha gives the example of the Ir Nidachas, right? What happens? Yes, you have to go to war against that Ir Nidachas. It's a city where the majority of the inhabitants are defiant of the Avodah Zarah. But there's a Rachmanis that God gives in Parshat Re'eh, V'richamcha. There's a Rachmanis that God gives us, the people responding to Ir Nidachas, because when you walk out of that battle, you're not the same human being. I'll give you a story. We had a young man, grew up in Beverly Hills in our shul in Beth Jacob, a fine young man. And when he goes to Israel, he goes to the Machal Yeshiva program, where he learned in the Gush Yeshiva, and then he joined the IDF. His platoon, they were patrolling the Gaza. This is before the Hitnatkut. His job was to defend the Gaza. And a Hamas member is coming at them. And they call out in Arabic to stop. Stop, drop your weapon, put your hands up. And he keeps coming, and he's coming within almost range of a fire. And they call out again in Arabic, stop, put your hands up. And he comes, and the Hamas member lifts his gun. At that point, they have no choice to shoot him. And this young man, a 19-year-old boy, grows up in Beverly Hills. He's not the same boy. He loses his innocence. He lost his innocence. Did he do the right thing? Absolutely. Did he save his own life? Absolutely. Did he stop a terrorist? Absolutely. But there's ramifications. There's psychological damage that happens when you do that. The famous line that Golda Meir had, we remember, I think it was 1978, when Anwar Sadat comes from Egypt and he comes to meet Menachem Begin. And they have a series of meetings, and then there's a dinner that night. And who's invited to the dinner? The former Prime Minister, Golda Meir, who 5 years earlier led her country trying to save itself for its own life after the Egyptian attack on Yom Kippur and the Syrian attack on Yom Kippur. And she meets Anwar Sadat face to face, the man who just 5 years ago was her enemy. She meets this man, and she says something. The first half of what she says, I think, is absolutely wrong. The second half of what she said is extremely profound. She says, President Sadat, I can forgive you for killing our boys, but I can never forgive you for turning our boys into killers. She had no right to forgive the Egyptians for what they did to the Jewish people. We cannot give mechila for that. However, that second statement, the second half of her statement, I can never forgive you for turning our boys into killers, is reflecting what happens when a sincere, good, decent person who you have to serve as a soldier, you need to defend your people. But the ramifications in the baggage that it causes when you go into battle and when you become a killer. That's Vayeishev. That bothered Yaacov. That distressed Yaacov. What would become? What would it do to him? And our final interpretation today is the Beis Halevi. And again, none of these are mutually exclusive. The two approaches the Sifsei Chachamim, the great super commentary on Rashi, give to Rashi. What's Vayeishev? The damage, the emotional damage that it will cause Yitzchak if Yaakov has to kill Esav. Number two, we said, was what? The collateral damage, the fear of killing innocents. Number three is the psychological damage. And number four, it's the Beis Halevi. And the Beis Halevi is referring to a pasuk a little bit later in the Parsha, and a little later in Parshas Vayishlach, where Yaakov Avinu says, Hatzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav. Please, God, save me from my brother, save me from Esav. Why not just say, Hatzileni mi Esav? What's miyad achi, miyad Esav? Save me from my brother, from Esav. Why the repetition? So the Beis Halevi says Yaakov was afraid of two things. Esav can come in two guises. One is the guise of coming to attack, to destroy, to oppress. And you need salvation from that. You need salvation from the attack of the enemy, from the attack of the anti-Semite. And it's very difficult, and it's a terrible struggle. But there's a fear that's just as great. When Esav doesn't come as Esav, but he comes as a brother. Kinship, brotherhood. What happens then? More Jews have been lost since after the Shoah, after the Churban, than during the Churban. More Jews have been lost to assimilation in America, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, South America, South Africa. Do you know how many Jews that we've lost? Because Esav has not come with the sword, but he's come with the embrace, with the hug, with the kiss. Vayishakehu, vayichabkehu. What happens then? How do we maintain, on the one hand, warm, good, positive relations, but yet at the same time maintain what makes us unique? Our value system, our philosophy, our approach to ethics and morals, the commitment and the passion to that vision and that destiny. It's very difficult to maintain that when Esav comes as Achi. Shuvi, shuvi, hashunamis. Come, let me embrace you. Come, be like me. Come, why retain your uniqueness? Why retain that unique, distinct character, that unique, distinct destiny? Why not be like everyone else? That's miyad achi. So if you take the approach of the Beis Halevi will go back. And what will he do? And of course the Beis Halevi, we know, Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik, Yasha Ber Soloveitchik, who was what? The first Soloveitchik to be the Rav of Brisk, was the great, he was the father of Reb Chaim, the great-grandfather and the namesake of the Rav Zatzal. And what happens? He says the following, what's Vayira Yaacov ma'od vayetzer lo? He was afraid if Esav comes as a killer, afraid of dying. What's vayetzer lo? He was also distressed if Esav does not come as a killer, but is this huge, larger body wanting to literally suck up, wanting to literally dissolve Yaakov into his world. Not because there's a mitzvah to be different for the sake of being different. God forbid, that's not the issue. But there's a value in what? In the values of Avram and Sarah and Yitzchak and Rivka and what Yaakov lived his life by. And those values very often run contrary. They're very distinct and different and unique from the values of Esav. That's Vayetzer lo. Hatzileni miyad achi. That is Vayetzer lo. That's what distressed Yaakov. So we've given 4, and there are more than 4 approaches to this. But in general, methodologically, whenever you see a repetition, 2 verbs that they don't seem to be unique, one seems to be nothing more than a synonym of the other, there's going to be usually great gold mines, diamond mines of information, whether it's psychological insight, theological insight, whether it's an aspect, a subtlety, a nuance. That's the example. Vayira Yaakov ma'od and Vayetzer lo. That's the example of miyad achi, miyad Esav. Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of Parshas Vayishlach.